Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jamie Masters, and today on the show, we're doing something different again. This is Joey Kornman from schoolofmotion.com. He has been an amazing client of mine for almost the past 2 years, and he just hit his $1 million gross revenue just a couple weeks ago. I am so excited to have him on the show. Plus, he has an upcoming book. We're going to gush about you in just a second. Thanks so much for coming on today, Joey.
Thanks for having me. It is always a pleasure to talk to you.
So what's so amazing is that you went through one of my group programs a long time ago, and then we had you on to sort of talk about how amazing that was. And it was a 10, 15-minute interview. So we've actually done this before, but that was probably, a year and a half ago. And now we're coming on and you just did $1 million gross revenue. So first, tell everybody what type of business you have. And then second, we're going to dive into how the heck you did that. Ready, go.
Sure. All right. So I run a company called School of Motion, and we're an online training company for motion designers. And motion designers are kind of a subset of animators. So we do design and animation for advertisements, explainer videos, cable networks, and stuff like that. And so my company has, a website with a whole bunch of content on it. And then we have these really intense training things that we call boot camps people can sign up for to really get in-depth hardcore education in the world of motion design.
Ta-da. Okay. So they're signing up for courses. You're amazing at delivering amazing content and teaching people how to do this. Because you even taught at a college beforehand, right? Like that's sort of what you did.
Correct. I taught at the Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah, make so much more money doing this online than doing it at a school. Just so
a little.
Yeah, a little bit so far. So why don't you tell us your trajectory? Because I remember when you started in Hustlers, you were making something like $500, but sort of, if you could sort of take 1 year at a time, because it's been like 2+ years since we've been working together. So like take it one step at a time, because you've just grown incredibly. So I want some of those pivotal moments to get you from where you were to where you are now to help people out.
Sure. So yeah, you're right. I mean, really, we've only had revenue and been cash flow positive for a couple of years, and which is kind of crazy. So when I started, before I was in Hustlers, I was trying this business model that I had seen other people do, where I put out free like video tutorials. And then I made this little software plugin that I thought would be useful for motion designers. And I've seen other people do that successfully. Turns out I do not like developing software and marketing that and then, updating it when the software like comes out with a new version. So that wasn't working. And I really had no clue what my business model was and how this was going to turn into anything. So when I signed up for Hustlers, that was really where I was at. I was making like a few sales of this plugin a month, maybe $500 a month here or there. It was kind of covering the cost of the website.
But you were also a freelancer too, by the way. So you were a successful freelancer in general. It's not like you had a day job, right?
I had to pay the bills.
Yes.
So it was freelancing. And so I was always good at freelancing. And so that was kind of a good safety net for me, knowing that no matter what, I can always go freelance. So when I got to Hustlers about 2 years ago, I was really trying to figure out a business model. Like, how could I take this site that I had that actually had some traction, and I had an email list, a few thousand, and I didn't know how I was going to take that and turn that into my full-time job, which is what I wanted. I just wanted to do this for a living. That's all I wanted. I had no thoughts of $1 million. I thought, let me just replace what I'm doing with this. And in Hustlers, that's when I kind of hit on the thing that I really love to do, which is teach. And I thought, well, there's no way I could charge for that, because there's like YouTube and people just do it for free on the internet. And I came up with this idea for like a kind of hybrid, interactive, half passive, half interactive class. And we put it together. And I still remember when you basically had to talk me off the ledge, or get me to jump off the ledge to pre-sell it. And that was the scariest thing I'd ever done in my life until that point. And it worked, and ended up doing like $10,000 in like 2 weeks or something like that. Or 2 days actually, because I sold anyway. So
I remember that very, very well, because he sold 1 day worth, and he's like, oh my gosh, I sold it out. And I go, well, do it again. And he did it the next day.
Yeah. I did it like the next day or 2 days later, and that sold out, and it sold out in minutes. It was very fast. So then I ran that first session, and that was a couple of years ago now. And right after that, you asked me to be on the mastermind with Pat and everybody. And I think right around that time, the class had started to make a little buzz because it was kind of unique how we were running it. And it just steamrolled. And soon we were doing sales of like 50K for a registration period. Things kept happening. And the first year after Hustlers, I made $500,000 with the company. So that's when you told me about the next level, the sort of the varsity version.
Always have something to sell, right, people? Come on, always know.
Yeah, always be closing. But it's funny because, when I signed up for Hustlers, it kind of came right at that moment. I was looking for help. I was like, I need help, not necessarily information. I had information. I just needed my ass kicked a little bit, and I needed someone to just kind of be a bellwether. And so when I got to 500,000 and I said, oh, I just made $500,000, and that was revenue. That wasn't profit. But it was still like, I couldn't believe it. I looked at my tax return and I was like, that's ridiculous. And so then I was like, okay, how do I get to 1 million now? Because if I can get to 500,000, I can get to 1 million, right? And I suspected that I was going to have to do a lot of really scary things like hire more people and start spending more and taking more risks and stuff like that. And I wanted that next push. And so the Six-Figure Mastermind came along at the perfect time for me because I already knew what you were capable of getting out of me. And I thought, this is
you just
more
kick clients. That's all. You just keep kicking them and they'll keep going. No.
The good thing is, you bruise us where we can cover it.
Oh, this is such a good interview. So tell me what within that, because the thing is that people will go, oh, you went from not very much to 500,000, which sounds crazy. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember that we put Joey in the hot seat in my personal mastermind with Pat Flynn. And people still to this day come back. And I told Pat and the guys that you hit your million, by the way. They were so excited for you because they remember you also. But that year was insane for you. So I want, what's one learning before we move into the sort of the next year of getting to 1 million? What was that first learning point of going from not really having a business model to 500 grand in 1 year?
Sure. I would say the number one thing that, I learned so much in that year. There's not one thing that I learned, but the thing that kind of occurred to me maybe halfway through the year, and then this year has just amplified, and I'm glad I sort of internalized this lesson, is that the journey from 0 to 500,000 and 500,000 to 1 million, it is not a straight line. It is peaks and valleys, and the valleys are deep, and you're looking at your bank account, and you're like, oh my God, am I going to run out of money? Or what if no one buys it next time? And I'm spending all this money on ads and I'm paying staff and all these things. And emotionally, it's not like this slow build towards, I made $1 million. It's soul crushing despair mixed with absolutely the most intense highs, when it works. And so I've learned to kind of weather those better. In a normal day-to-day job where you show up, those peaks and valleys, they're way smoother, and they're, much lower peaks, much higher valleys. And when you're doing it on your own, you're just amplifying that times 100. And so you have to kind of develop some resiliency in yourself. And now I understand why on all of these podcasts like yours, everyone meditates and everyone's exercising all the time and doing the miracle morning, because if you don't do that, you're going to go nuts, because it is that intense. So that's the one thing that really hit home for me was this is just how it is. And I need to learn to absorb it, or I'm not going to last very long.
See, this is huge, because this is the thing. Entrepreneurs have very similar brains. I talk to so many of you. You all sound the same, not in a good way, not in a bad way, but it really is this up and down and up and down and up and down. And whether you're at the beginning, because I know some people are like, oh gosh, it's just me, but it's not just you. We just learn different things. There's always different problems that come up. That's why I work with 7-figure people too. There's still problems at 7 figures, and they're just bigger problems, people. Jeez. So tell me what you did to weather that storm, to get better and better and better at that, you personally.
Sure. So, I tried everything. I tried meditating, and I'm still trying to do that and practice mindfulness. I think and I really don't want to sound like I'm selling it too much, but like honestly, the thing that helped me the most was just connecting with other people who are going through it. Because in my day-to-day life before this, and actually even to this day, nobody in my immediate like geographic location, my social circle, are doing anything like this. I have a lot of very successful friends, but they're successful like at a big company, they're a senior vice president or they're a banker or something like that. No one I know is doing this. And so their path is just a lot smoother than mine. And I don't have anyone other than my wife, who I'm very lucky to have, to kind of like bounce things off of. And so being able to join a group, especially the six-figure mastermind, just to have people who are kind of dealing with the same things and the same emotions and self-doubt and all that has been huge, because I'm a person who I really like to have a model to look at of someone who's done it, and not to just hear them on Eventual Millionaire or one of the other podcasts, but to be able to ask them questions, like how do you hire someone? What do you do when you hire someone and they stink? Like stuff like that. So that was really helpful. And then just really getting more strict with myself, like exercising religiously, eating way better, cutting way back on the wine, stuff like that. Because I can't have a bad day anymore. It like affects the business. I can't have a day where I just can't function.
It's totally your brain. And we as entrepreneurs are learning to mitigate our brain. But like even Arion that went through the program lost like 30 pounds, went on more vacation. You went on a bazillion vacations also. I was like, Joey's not showing up again. Oh, wait, he's on vacation again. So it's not like you weren't pre-planning and sort of putting in as much rest as we can, because there's only so much of the craziness that you can take. Because I've noticed, and I told you this at the beginning, my whole goal with any of my clients is to make their wives or husbands love me or significant others love me, because it's not just about the money. Yes, that's great, but you need to be less stressed, right? And you need to actually go and spend time with them, because they're going to hate me if you're making more money and then they never see you again, right? So tell me about how many vacations, before we go into the next piece, tell me about how many vacations you went on, because it's insane.
Yeah, we travel a lot. And honestly, I'm a big, whenever someone asks me how this happened to me, I say I read the 4-Hour Work Week, and like that, that whole mentality of you don't wait till you're retired to do the things you want to do. And so like the whole reason to start this business and work this hard is so we can do that stuff. And, we've designed our whole life around being able to pick up and go somewhere. So this year we took our kids, and we have 3 kids in there. The oldest is 6 and the youngest at the time was like 14 months. We went to London for 12 months. We went to Massachusetts over the summer. And then we also just got back from there because my wife's family's from there. We went apple picking. We went to Salem because it's Halloween. We did a whole bunch of touristy things. We're going to Texas for Thanksgiving. My wife's been able to travel. I've traveled a little bit like for work and stuff this year. And we've really tried to set it up so that, I can work from anywhere. And we have the capacity to go travel, because again, like the money is a nice kind of way of keeping score. It's an easy way for me to tell that the business is doing well. But frankly, and the interesting thing is, after crossing that $1 million mark, it means a lot less to me than it did. Now it's more about how much traffic are we getting? Like how many views are our videos getting? Things I probably should have cared a lot more about before, I care way more about now, because it's like I've hit that goal and I know that the business is providing value to people. Otherwise, it never would have gotten there. And so now it's kind of like minimized money, because we have enough to do the things we want. We don't like have private jets. I mean, we have one car and it's a minivan. I ride my bike to my office. Like we don't spend that much money traveling. We probably spend more on travel than most people do, but that's because that's what's important to us. We don't have cable, and we don't go out to 5-star restaurants all that often. What we want to do is see the world and show our kids the world. And, so that's what we do.
It's amazing. And It's amazing to see the trajectory that you've done too. And I looked so hard for a signed copy of 4-Hour Work Week, by the way. Oh my gosh, my whole team, we tried to even contact his publishing agency. And I kind of know him a little. I know friends of friends, and I still couldn't get a hold of him. But that was my goal. But instead, you're getting other presents in the mail for hitting your million. But that's,
Oh
just
my
so
God,
you
no.
know, I so tried because I know how
I would have
important that was
fainted.
for you. You get something else. You're gonna laugh when you get it. I
Uh,
shipped it out on Saturday. So let's talk about the 500 to a million, because there's a lot of people that are listening too that are already doing six figures, and they're like, awesome, great. How do I really level it up? Because there's usually, I feel like there's a stuck point to get to 10,000 a month. Everyone's like, oh, six figures, right? Or five figures a month. And then there's a stuck point after you hit six figures in the couple hundred thousands where you're like, okay, there's a plateau. You didn't have a plateau. So tell me how the pivotal pieces from 500 to a million that made all the difference.
Sure. Okay. So for us, it was, and I say us because I now have a team, which that's part of it. So when I started in Hustlers, I think it was just me, and sort of at the beginning of that, I hired my first hire, and it was she was part time, and after a few months, she became full time, and it was this that was so scary because I was like all of a sudden on the hook, and this person was depending on me
More
for
mouths to
pay
feed.
their
It's like a
rent and stuff.
child. Yes.
Yeah, and I was terrible at managing too. I got very lucky that I got someone who was kind of self motivated like me, and didn't need a ton of direction. And so after a while, we got to a point where I realized that we had the systems in place now to pretty consistently make a few hundred grand a year. In order to get to the next level, I needed to take myself out of some of the things I was doing. That's when we kind of rejiggered our course a little bit to where now I hire contractors who I call teaching assistants, and we have 10 of them now, working all the time, and they are now doing all of the contact with students in our courses, which freed me up to go out and find talent to develop new products. So in order to do that, I had to like bring on my assistant full time, and she's still with us. And then I also had to go out and start hiring contractors part time, and figuring out how to manage them and how to make sure they're doing what they're doing and how to pay them and things like that. All of that got us to about 500,000. Getting from 500,000 to a million, I needed to scale the operation. And I am like, this is so cliche, and I hate people who say this, so I feel bad I'm saying it, but I feel like I'm kind of an idea guy more than a execution guy sometimes, where I can see how it should fit together and I can lay it out, but then like I get lazy when it comes to the details. So I needed someone who's the opposite of that. I needed someone meticulous who like can look at analytics and stay awake and stuff like that. And I knew that person was going to cost more and be like a more high level person who would expect more out of me too. And so one of the first things I ended up doing in Six Figure Mastermind was hiring a project manager. And I'm not even sure that title fits because we did an exhaustive search, and we found the perfect person. And I'd say from the day we hired her, things just like slanted up even steeper. Since then, we've hired another person, and every time I hire, I always ask everyone in any mastermind groups I'm in for advice because it scares me to do it. And this group, like almost everyone in the group has employees. So like, they've all done it. They've all had bad hires and good hires, and the advice was amazing. So really it was getting over that fear and building a team. And then being comfortable letting some of the small things go. So I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs would call themselves perfectionists. And that's actually not a good thing, I think. I think that gets in the way. And that was getting in the way a lot because I was spending all this time in Infusionsoft, making the funnel perfect and this and that. And I wasn't actually like putting content out there and like sending emails to my list and things like that. And I kind of got slapped around in the mastermind a little bit, and we started doing that. And this last registration period, the one that put us over a million, was the second highest we've ever had. So like it was just getting out of my own way really was like the biggest thing, like getting over my fear of hiring, getting out of my own way, and then really just letting my team like do what they're good at. And now my next question is like, what's next? How do I get to the next thing? And I know there's going to be like way more scary things I have to do. But that's the other thing. Like you just get used to being scared all the time. Like there's always some low level of fear. And that's cool. That like tells me that I'm moving in the right direction.
See, this is so, so important. I've seen you over the last year step into the leadership role. Like you said, it's about letting go, but it's about letting go and then stepping up into kind of an uncomfortable, scary place of going, okay, I'm in charge and I need to tell everybody else what's going on and not necessarily be in the weeds of it. And that's how you grow.
Yeah.
It's so insane. I mean, what we did in the group was everybody gushed about how amazing Joey was and your positivity, you going and willing to take any out of comfort zone experience. You'd be like, okay, I'll do it. And we're like, oh, he does not want to do that at all. And yet every single time you're like, when we'd come back, you'd be like, okay, I did it. Okay. I mean, I made you double your course at the very beginning and you're like, okay, thanks, Jamie. But you never step back from a challenge. So impressed with you just stepping into it and figuring it out as you go. Most people don't do that, just so you know.
Sure. I mean, I hate to bring the 4-hour work week up again, but like literally like that book rewired my brain. And there's a concept in there called fear setting where you figure out like, what's the worst case scenario? You asked me to double the capacity of my course. It was terrifying. And I was sitting there thinking, and it was funny because what happened in my brain was, well, if I double it, I'm going to have to hire more people. And then and then what happens if I double it and like, I still only sell the same amount. And then I did the fear setting thing, which, okay, let's pretend that happens. What's the worst thing that you have to tell one of the TAs that you hired, like, actually, we don't need you this time. Well, that wouldn't be so bad. Like, their feelings are hurt for a day and then they get over it. Like, oh, that's not so bad. I never used to do that. I always used to take it all the way to where I'm homeless living in a van down by the river.
Me too. Yep. Down by the river.
Part of it. And by the way, when I doubled the capacity of my course, we sold out that session with double capacity, completely paid for the cost of Six Figure Mastermind. With that one tip, by the way. As soon as that happened, I was like, okay, clearly made the right choice here.
Jamie kind of knows what she's talking about sometimes. Well, that's the thing. You had so many launches that if you could squeeze that together, that's how come it makes things easier also on you because it's not all about you. It's the same time frame, just a few more things to work out, which is exactly what you did. And now it sets you up again for next year. So that way you can plan it out even better because you know what works and what doesn't work. I know we have to start wrapping up. I hate this. I knew I was going to go over. Joey, me and you could talk all day. True. Usually it's us going over problems. This time it's talking about amazing wins, which I really, really appreciate. But I'm going to ask you the same last question. Now we aren't net worth million, but you just hit $1 million gross revenue. So I feel compelled to be able to ask you this also. What's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million gross?
I would say I want to think of something difficult because my whole thing and what I always tell people, I'm at the point where some of my family and my friends are starting to kind of get that something's happening and that like this business is doing really well and things are going well. And so I start getting the questions like, from my friends who are in these jobs they hate and can't think of a way out. And what I always feel from them is that I can tell them exactly what to do, but they won't do it. Right? There's a blocker there. That blocker is fear. And so I would say, again, if you haven't read the 4-Hour Work Week, go read the 4-Hour Work Week. Like honestly, I gift it to people now. And there's other books that do this too. I mean, your book kind of does this too, but that one it's just like it targeted my brain perfectly.
Me too. So, changed my life also.
Like, it basically just in a very easy way, it'll make you question a lot of things. And what you'll realize is that if you've been on the treadmill for a long time, which most of us have, right? You just you get on the treadmill in elementary school and you get off after college and there you are. And this is where you've arrived. And now what? It's really hard to accept and to give yourself permission to accept that there are no rules. All of these rules that are out there, you have to have a 9-to-5 job because how are you can't have health insurance otherwise. And all these silly misconceptions. None of it's true. And that book just kind of made me believe it. And from that point on, like there was nothing before that. And then it just kind of started to happen after that. So I think my advice would be figure out, like, try that book. And if that one doesn't work, like, find one that does. Find something that inspires you to do something that scares the crap out of you. And then do something that scares the crap out of you. And for me, it was that very first video tutorial I put out there, and like went on Reddit and posted and said, "Hey guys, I started a blog and here's a video tutorial." And it was terrifying, and I thought people would like troll me and call me names, and I never would have done it without having someone, Tim Ferriss, like, through book form, kind of take some of that fear out of me. So that'd be my advice. Try to knock that wall down. At least take one piece of it and knock it down.
I love, 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 love. And it was one of those books that did that to me too. I started a website called Life After Colic because both my kids had colic, and it was all about like trying to get people to get over like the crazy, right? So it was one of those books that also made me take some action. And what you're saying, especially the action that pushes you more than just, oh, I, created a blog and then wrote some stuff. You actually had to do a video and showed it to people. And people could have hated it, and you could have gone and curled up in a hole if you wanted to and never would have been where you are right now. And thank goodness you didn't, and you kept moving forward no matter what anyone else says. I'm so impressed with you, Joey, on your just relentless commitment to just keep moving forward, even if it scares the hell out of you. And to be really vulnerable and honest that you're like, this scares the hell out of me. It's like, good. It does for everybody. This is not just you. This is not rocket science here. It's moving forward. So tell us where we can find you. I know you have an upcoming book. Tell people where they might be able to get that in the next couple of weeks. That way everybody can follow you because you are amazing.
Sure. So everything is at schoolofmotion.com. And if you go there, there's like tons of videos about animation and all kinds of fun stuff, interviews with people. I do have a book about freelancing that is just being edited now, and like the artwork's being finalized. And that should be out probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And so if you go to schoolofmotion.com, we're also on Twitter at School of Motion, Facebook, School of Motion. That's, it's pretty easy to find us. And all the information about the book when it's released will be there. And if you have any questions, please shoot me an email.
Definitely. And it's so funny. I was chatting with just some random person that was talking about their daughter wanting to do video game animation and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, well, you should go to this site because you guys have tons of free tutorials. And I don't think people understand that the freelancing side is really lucrative too. Like that's what you were feeding your family with beforehand. So there's always trajectories. Like, let's do this first, get outside of your comfort zone. That seems more normal and not like too crazy outside of your comfort zone. But Joey told me just a minute before we got on the line that he's buying his dream house also. So congratulations, fingers crossed that it all works out. It's so amazing to see your journey. And hopefully we'll have you back on the show again. So when your net worth is $1 million, you'll do one of the Millionaire Monday emails and we can talk all about, because I know all the details. We can share everything. So thank you so much for coming on today, Joey. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Jamie.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want more like it, go to eventualmillionaire.com. If you click on the millionaire case studies, you will see over 200 millionaire interviews. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, of course, but I do want you to pick the one that might make the biggest difference in your business today. So what's something you're struggling with, and take a look and see if one of those could specifically help you. Don't just take information for information's sake. I want you to be able to take the information, have it applicable to you right now. You use it, you take action, you see results, you come back and go, Jamie, that was amazing. That's what I want. So go check out eventualmillionaire.com and click on the millionaire case studies. Thanks.